So we'd like to introduce ourselves first. We married later in life.
He's Dale and I'm Jean, if there's any question. Yeah.
I was 36.
And I was 34.
And we've been married 33 and a half years. We have 2 sons. They have grown up.
It can happen. You don't shrivel up and die if you're past 23. Just a joke.
And so she had her own career as a single person.
I worked in Pakistan as a public health nurse with Afghan refugees.
And I was a water resources irrigation engineer. And so we came here thinking that we'll kind of help with the solution to the Aral Sea crisis, you know, the Aral Sea environmental problem here in your country. Everybody grows up knowing about that. So she's going to tell a little bit of her story. And remember, do we have to, Sardor, do we have to like wait till the end for questions, or can people, if they want to, anytime, right? So we'd like this to be interactive. In fact, if we were doing this, if we thought about it, we'd have everybody kind of in a U shape so you could see and talk to one another, but with only 1 hour or something. Okay, so your students like sit in the rows, but that interactive, that's what we like more.
Right. And you can do the full arm. You don't have to do the half arm. I know about the half arm because we've lived here in Uzbekistan over the years, for over 20 years now. And our children, we have 2 sons, and they went to school here. So
In Russian.
So I understand about being a mom who gets notes home from school, and I can't read them, and I don't understand them. And so I have to ask my children, what does this mean? So anyway, about 3 years ago, Dale had some health problems, so we ended up going back to the States. And we're grateful that those seem to be better now. So we're back. And we don't know how long we'll be here, but we're glad to be back. What I wanted to talk about today a little bit, because I know, what is your favorite dream? Like, you come to Chai Chat, what are you hoping to get from Chai Chat?
Knowledge.
Knowledge? Okay, that's one, yes.
To understand more people.
To understand more people, okay,
In other
yeah.
languages also, yeah.
What else? Anything else?
Experience.
Experience, okay. Other ideas?
Communication.
Okay, communication. Yes, you're hearing, you're seeing a different style of presenting or whatever. So in that sort of vein, I wanted to ask, do any of you like to play sports?
Yeah.
Okay, what do you like to play?
Soccer.
Soccer, okay.
Tennis.
Which?
Tennis.
Tennis?
Yeah.
Okay, yes. Any other sports? Yes.
Karate.
Karate, okay, yes. Anybody else?
And also volleyball. Yeah.
Volleyball, okay, yes. And now tell me, when you started to learn about these different sports, what did you need to know to be able to play them?
The rules.
The rules, okay, yes, that's a good one. Anything else?
Tools.
Okay, tools, maybe there's a ball, maybe there's a, you know, if it's badminton, you've got a racket or something, the tennis racket, yeah. So in the sports game, what's important?
Concentration. Concentration.
Concentration, okay, yes. Anything else?
Being strong.
Being strong, okay, yes.
Acting on time.
Hmm?
Acting on time.
Acting all the time, okay, yes. Okay, how do we learn about the rules of the game?
Usually by playing.
Okay, sometimes we just start playing, right? But okay, so sometimes that's important. But if you went to a big tournament and that was your first time, would you be out there playing?
No. Of
No.
course.
Yeah. So in that case, you can come join us.
I will with my friends.
Ah, okay. Well, there's more chairs here. So anyway, the reason I'm asking these questions is that there's a lot in life that have rules. And in a way, life is a bit of a game, because if you know how things work, why it can, like if you've never transferred schools, if you've always gone to the same school your whole time, and I know you've changed schools because you're all older, but if you hadn't had that, you wouldn't know what it means to change schools, right?
Yes.
So, and somebody told me that they had high hopes of traveling a lot. So just think about what it's like to go to another country, and you have a different language. What other things are different in another country? Culture,
Lifestyle.
history, people. Yes, there's many, many things. Just yesterday, I was walking down the street close to where we're staying, and I thought to myself, and I was thinking about this time together, and I was thinking about how to understand how a culture works. And I realized that after all these years, I still have not figured out which side of the sidewalk I'm supposed to walk on here. Because sometimes people are coming down this way, sometimes they're coming down this way, and and sometimes I think maybe it depends, because if I'm older person, then like there's just
If
all
you're older,
these.
you can go anywhere.
Anyway, I just realized there's lots of rules that I still haven't figured out, even after being here for a while. So when you travel, there's going to be lots of things to get used to. What do you think is one of the best tools to learn about the rules in a place?
Adaptation.
Adaptation, okay.
Learning from others' mistakes.
Okay, yes, that's a good one. And is it because they say, "Oh, I made a mistake"?
No.
Okay, how do you know they made a mistake?
They will fail.
They will fail. Okay, so maybe there's failure does teach us one way or another. Yeah. So we're observing, right? Yeah.
And being responsible is also important.
Yeah, and being responsible. Well, and what is being responsible in one place may not be responsible in another place. And it's like, so when you go to a new country, or you can watch. Of course, you can try to ask friends, what does this mean? But be patient with yourself, because there's a whole lot to learn. And learn to laugh at yourself. Oh, really? Oh, I got to tell you a story. I was trying to learn Russian, okay? I'm still in the process of learning Russian. It's going to be an ongoing lesson for a long time. But anyway, I was explaining to some friends that I got married later. Okay. So I was trying to explain that to them, and they had this look at. I thought, I don't know, maybe I said the wrong thing. And then I asked a friend, and she says, "Jean, you said you got married dangerously."
Pozna, a Pozna.
So just be prepared to laugh at yourself. And when I heard that, I mean, you'll hear from Dale. He's got a lot of ideas. He likes to do things, go places, and nothing much slows him down. So there's probably truth to that dangerously part too. But anyway, I was trying to say later. Okay. So I guess that's all I have to say, but I just wanted to encourage you to be patient with yourself, that it takes a time to learn how to live in a place, wherever you end up. You know, I think Uzbeks are almost all over the world now. So, you know, people are adaptable, but we have to be patient with ourselves. Anyway, you have any questions or anything that, or you can ask later too when we have questions.
So I want to boast about Jean. She grew up on a farm, and on a farm you work hard, and you have chores, responsibilities. So from early on, she learned how to fulfill her obligations in the home and with the family and the livestock and so on. So she was mature for her age, and when she was 16, her father let her go from America to England by herself. He paid
I
for
need
the
to
trip.
tell you part of the story there.
Okay.
I was thinking about doing, there's a couple names for it. In Britain, they call it physiotherapy. In the United States, they call it physical therapy. But it's after you've had an accident or surgery, you get going again. It helps people get functioning again with their muscles and bones and stuff. And my father, who was quite wise, he said, Jean, if you're going to spend 4 years in Britain, I want you to go and see what life is like there before you make that big move. So that's how he sent me.
So, how many weeks were you in Britain about?
6 weeks.
6 weeks, going from this place to this place to this place by herself with her rucksack, you know, and all she had was contacts and phone numbers and so on. So she was learning how to be
And I
independent.
had a book about Britain, about different
Like
towns.
something off there, you know, travel to Britain or whatever. But by the time she was about 24, 25, she went to Nepal for 3 months, you know, and taught nurses. And then she traveled in India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan by herself again with a rucksack in the 1980s, courageously on the trains and the buses. And so she has, someday she'll write a story, you know, a book about all those adventures. And that was before we got married, then we had more adventures. So I'm just really so proud of Jean and how as a mother, as partner in our marriage, she was that main influence to our children, and who are both married now, and one of them has 2 children, and they're both professionals, and we're just so proud of them. So just as I believe your parents are probably so proud of you. So when I got to the Irrigation Institute, I'm an irrigation engineer, and I learned Russian, or had some Russian before, but then I took Podgotовительный fakultet training, and the students at that time, who were the age of some of you, maybe like your age, they were coming to me and, Mr. Henry from America, would you teach me English? Well, no, I'm not an English teacher. Well, could you help me find funding for my research? Okay, let's start with the basis, because you got to ask somebody, you have to have a proposal, some kind of plan. We always start with the foundational documentation. What do you think that is? You're going to ask somebody for some money to do something, or something like that. How do you start? What's the basis of introducing yourself professionally?
Presentation.
What's that?
Presentation.
Well, that's later.
Greeting hands.
What?
Shaking hands. Greeting introducing.
Well, no, I'm saying before you even meet somebody, you only know that there might be this fund or this process. How do you start then?
It could be considered a written process, presentation.
Resume?
Who said that?
This guy.
What'd you say?
Resume.
Resume, or we call it curriculum vitae, or CV, or característica, and so on. That is who you are professionally. It's a piece of paper, you know. It could be 1-2 pages. When you're young, it's not. You don't have too much experience yet, but that's kind of the beginning step. And so I said, well, let's start with a resume, because before somebody invests in your idea, you know, yes, you can have the proposal, the budget, but they're going to want to, you know, if you're going to ask money to investigate, let's say, hydrogels, which was a polymer that you put in the soil, saves water, combines with the soil, ties up the water, et cetera, et cetera. And in your background is psychology, who's going to invest in you? Because you're not a chemist, you're not a biologist or a soils guy or engineer. So you have to connect who you are to what that opportunity might be. So it's good to connect. But anyway, they said, well, what's that? What's the resume? That's when my life professionally took what I call a right turn. Because I came as an engineer thinking I maybe teach at the university and I'll work in the water sphere, because I was 40 years old. I already had 18 years experience. But what I saw was that people wanted to help with their resume, and that was the starting point. So I say I morphed, like the butterfly or cocoon, whatever, morphed into a sociologist. And the reason I say sociologist, I could say psychologist, but I say sociologist because being here now in your culture all these years, I know how important family is, connections, relationships, and I know that everybody here is connected to parents and cousins and if you came from the regions, you know, your small place where you came from and so on. And because I knew that, I began adding to the CV kinds of things that you wouldn't see in USA or online, how to write a CV. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to help young people figure out what is the direction they're trying to go. And a lot of times young people don't know, right? So, but when I would spend time with them, it's really their stories, your story. If somebody like a coach, mentor spends time with you, helping you tell your story, it's really your story. But sometimes that kind of interest, that kind of listening, will help you discover what it is your Sudba. Where are you going in life? So, and so I've spent 27 years doing that. I'm a master for that direction. And my direction is agriculture, water resources, really only. I could do engineering too, but I've tried to focus in the way, you know, that I'm good at, or at least I have a understanding of the field. And but now, so then we might have, okay, so that was for that guy. We need a resume. What are other reasons you might? Well, I should ask. How many in this room, 20 people, already have a resume or a CV? Okay, most of you, that's good. Okay, so then what do we use that for? What could you use it for?
Applying for a job.
Looking for a job. Okay, what? University application, good.
Looking for a job.
Looking for a job and or an opportunity to join a graduate study or a university or whatever. Good. Any other thoughts? Competing almost for anything. It could be competing for a volunteer position at United Nations or something. They want to know, who are you? And so then I started what I call major life questions that, as I've been doing this for a while, this is my conclusion, that as we go through life, there are major stages. You leave home, if some of you came from Sirdaria, Kashkadaria, and so on, you leave home, it's kind of major change. Now you're kind of more on your own. You have to do your own cooking, your own clothes washing, make your good choices about your friends, manage your time, manage your money, whatever little bit of money you have from parents or from making, maybe you have a job and so on. So that's a major life change. Then you go along a little bit later. What would be another kind of major life change time frame after you left home, let's say? And some of you are still in Tashkent, you're still living at home, so you haven't made that transition yet. That will come later, probably. But what were you going to say?
Marry.
So marriage, okay? Then that's a major one because it's a cross-cultural experience. Who is this person that I just fell in love with, and so on? Okay, so what could be before that? Think about it.
Education.
Huh?
Education.
Okay, so did you say education? Yeah, that's generally the way it would be best, and I'll tell you why. In my opinion, Suleiman wrote a lot of wise sayings, and one of the things he said was, he said to an agrarian, agricultural culture at that time, he said, go plow your field and then build your house. Now, if we took that into today's world, what could that say to us? We're not all farmers. We're not going to all get on the tractor and plow the field. Okay. So what's the principle of the wisdom behind that?
But first, work hard.
Well, work hard, but work in the direction that's going to bring a return on your investment of time, right? Because for the farmer, he hopes to get a crop. He'll sell the crop. He can then buy construction materials. He can build the house then. But he also has a vocation. He has a direction. Now, this is more for a guy to the guys. This is kind of what I would say really important. When she was 34, as I said, we got married. We didn't know one another very well. It was almost like an arranged marriage thing. And I invited her to join me in the direction because I already told her I'm going to Uzbekistan. And kind of like, do you want to come along with me? And she did, because it's very natural for a woman to follow a man into the direction and vision that he has. And normally, usually, even if you have your career and so on, at some point, most people, if they do get married and they're a woman, they tend to have children, and that's normal and pretty common. Which means, if you're a woman and you're thinking about a guy, you better be thinking, is he going somewhere? And does he know where he's going in life? So the questions that I would ask at that time is, well, and maybe then, as soon as you start to have children, of course, those are major life changes, times, a lot more responsibility, tiredness and stuff. And then when your children grow up and then they start getting married, that's big deal, costs lots of money. And then when you have grandchildren, of course, so we're almost age 70 here, me, and we have a couple grandchildren. So it's a different stage of life. We're more independent. We used to have a company here, 13 people on my shoulders every month, making sure we could pay Zarplata, etc. It was stressful. So, but the point, what I want to make the point is, it's good to ask yourself at these major life turning points these 4 questions, okay? This is what I found. The first one is, who am I? And if you think about who I am, has a lot to do with what kinds of things in general. What do you think? Say you're asking that question when you're 18 and you go to Tashkent to university. Who am I? Or you're about to get your first major job, and who am I? So what things figure into those kind of answers?
Occupation.
Huh?
Occupation.
Well, that's going to be my second question, but we'll get to that. Okay? Who am I is more about me, and
Maybe which
Nationality?
well, that's part of it. That's culture, right? You came from Africa, maybe?
Yeah.
So you have a different who am I than these mostly Uzbek people, okay? So, and nationality goes back further. You know, when you're representing who when you're here as a foreign student or whatever, who are you representing?
I'm a teacher, foreign teacher.
Okay, so you have your family too. You have family here?
No, hello.
Okay, so he's eligible. I'm kidding. but somewhere back home, there is somebody you're representing, right?
Yeah.
Who is that somebody?
Son,
Huh?
son, son,
He's a son.
son.
Son?
Yes.
Well, or what if you're not married yet? Who
He's
else?
representing the family.
The family.
The family, which usually means parents who invested in you. Those are the first major influences in your life. So there's genetics related to that because you're tall or you're short or you're fast running somewhat much because of genetics, but that's only a part of it. What about in Russian it's called vaspitание. What kind of culture did you grow up in the home? Were you affirmed and developed and encouraged, or were you just kind of over here and no attention? Okay, so our parents often influence who we are, but that's not all. Who are some other major influences in our life early on?
Environment.
Huh?
Environment.
Environment like what? Like the air quality today, or
Yeah.
what kind of environment?
People.
Huh?
People around.
Okay, so think about it in your own life. What kinds of people have had influence? What kind of environment have had influences with you?
France.
Friends do. Okay.
Education?
Teachers. What about teachers? Most of you, if you're good students and you're really working hard and setting goals and going somewhere in life, like I believe most of you are, that's why you're coming here instead of just sitting around drinking tea or doing hubbly bubbly, right? You got ambitions. And I bet if we had time and we asked each one of you, tell me about your favorite teacher, you would tell me stories that they really encouraged you. And it almost makes me want to cry because those people, for me, are already passed away. But they were influential. And they said, oh, Dale, you're going to be a scientist someday, you know, or something like that. They believed in me, and that made me want to go further. So teachers are really another big one. And they can say, you know, I see this talent in you that is, you're so artistic. Yeah, you maybe not make good in math and science, but you are just really creative. I encourage you to go in that way. And the same with parents. Parents know us quite well. There will be parents, of course, that say, you're going to be a doctor because we need a doctor in our family. Or you're going to be a lawyer because we need a lawyer in our family, right? Or you're going to be a banker or whatever. But I have met so many young people after 4 years spending a lot of time, a lot of money going to this or that university, finish, and they, you know, father, okay, I did what father or I did what mother or I did what grandfather said I should do, but I'm not interested. It's not where my heart lies. And they wasted 4 years of their life. I've seen that too much here, but it happens in America too. So, who am I? And another thing about the who am I is, what do I like? You know, what do I prefer? I like shashlik, or I like jizz, or I like samsa, or I like soup, or I like lettuce, zelen, whatever. That's food. But I like sports, or I like social interaction one-on-one with people. Or I'm a shy person, I prefer to be on the computer all the time, or whatever, right? We are made up of those things. And it's good to kind of do that inventory before you start asking people for help. Now that's my next point. Okay, so who am I? And I'm the composite of those influences in my life. Then the question, what's my vocation? What's my job? Where am I going in life? Okay, those are natural progressions which at this age probably most of you are thinking about already. And is this a possibility? Or is this a possibility? Last week I talked to some student who's in soils. I'm an agricultural guy, so she came up to me and said, you know, is there a future in soils? I said, what do you know about soils in Uzbekistan? Well, not much, but I know a lot about soils in Central Asia. Okay, what do you know about soils in Central Asia? And she didn't have much she could just tell me. And I said, you know, this is a desert environment, low organic matter. They're not naturally fertile. They've been worn out by cotton. Soils are tired. There's no microbiological life in the soil, and they're dying. And because of that, crops are going downhill. And people will get hungry if you don't change the resource base of soils. So, but what she was really asking me is there a future in this direction? You know, when I was leaving home, and I didn't know what I was going to do, my father said, why don't you be an agricultural engineer? I said, what's that? I was 17 years old. I said, what's that? He said, I don't know, but my friend Wayne, who was my father's only university trained person, was an agricultural engineer. He said, he really likes his job. He's outside. Da, da, da. So I wrote a letter, and I knew Wayne from when I was little. Dear Wayne, I'm thinking about my future. What, can you tell me? And so in those days before cell phones on, he wrote 2-page letter to me, put stamp, send it through the post, and said, why don't you come up after you graduate from high school and spend 2 days with me shadowing, you know, that job shadowing idea, with somebody that I knew and trusted. And then I saw what he did. I said, wow, this is neat. So I started to have a direction. So anyway, where am I going? Then, who can help me along the way? So Chai Chat, ACT Center here, these are resources and places for investment and so on. So that's a starting place. But getting now to the resume, the CV, the characteristica sort of thing, the people that will often, especially university, okay, you're interested, you want to go abroad for further training or something, those people, they get letters all the time or whatever. Hi, my name is Sardar, and I'm from Uzbekistan, and I'm interested in your graduate program, blah, 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 blah. They get those kind of things all the time, like dozens and hundreds. So if I had a whiteboard here, I draw a tree. I would put under the tree somebody sitting in the shade going, why? Because his job is to help students, a lot of whom don't know what they're really interested in, a lot of whom maybe not qualified, and he has to find what are the best ones because we only have, let's say, 5 scholarships here. And I have 200 applicants. And it's kind of overwhelming. If you're in the helps profession, or you're a psychologist, or you're a doctor or a nurse or whatever, excuse me. Lots of times you get kind of burnt out and tired. And everyone is the same way. Once you get into graduate school application process, you're going to have to do an essay, that kind of thing, statement of purpose, etc. And generally the people, thank you, dear. Watch that this guy who has to read, you know, during this month of application, has to read 200 of these, and they all say the same thing. Hi, I'm blank. I'm from blank. Your CV already says that. You know, get to the point. But what you want to do is get his attention. Now, in the marketplace, if you've gone to, of course, Zinka and whatever, you know, the modern retail grocery stores, they have what's called merchandising. And if some of you are in economics, you might know that term. It's how do you distinguish your product from the next guy's product. If you go now to the bazaar, there's all the carrots, there's all the bananas, there's all, you know, everybody has the same offerings, and maybe the price is pretty similar. But in the idea of merchandising, you're trying to distinguish your product, you're trying to get people to buy your product, and so there's actually a tiered price, wholesale price kind of thing. By agreement, it's not just under the table or anything, it's actually, if you want your product to be seen by people, you put it on the shelf between this height and this height. Because people who are busy and come in to buy juice have 5 choices. They look here, they don't look here, and they don't look up here. Those are still good products, but this guy paid a premium to get his product on that shelf. That's called merchandising. He's trying to distinguish his product from the competition. Now it's the same way when you're applying for something. You want to get your resume seen and read. You want, and if you have so many, applications like this, you want to move your resume from this pile to this pile. There's a job, same thing, and now you want to get an interview. So, so there's 2 things going on. You have to have an attractive resume and so on. The first thing is when you have your picture on the resume, you smile, not cheesy smile, but a normal smile. You don't do the Soviet thing, right? We know because our children went through that, and that's what they did in 1st grade and 2nd grade.
For about 5 years, my parents, the grandparents want smiles, and they would say, "I'm going to take a picture of you." I mean, it was crazy, but the boys actually eventually learned, but it's one of those things of learning about another culture. So.
Okay, so from the resume standpoint, actually, I got a phone call this morning from Sardor, dear. He's in USA, he got his PhD, he went to India, he's married, has children, his wife is getting advanced training. We've known him for 20 years, let's say. He's the first one that put together a little 3-minute video segment with a hyperlink at the top of his CV. Any one of you could do that, and it will be different than 100 others that come in without that. But you have to think through, and he actually learned software how to combine still photography with video segments and music. I mean, he actually became an artist in doing this. But, by the hyperlink, it said 2-minute intro. These kind of people that are, busy, they might, this is different, let me go there. They don't want to read 2 pages or 1 page of why he's so, they might look at that later. But that makes it easy for them. It's the same way with your bolding. I have seen these kind of formatted, get online and get on that kind of thing, and the formatting from the online template puts the bolds in for you. You don't have a choice. And what it bolds is the wrong things. What you want the people to see as you're going down through the resume, you want to guide them with the bolding. And as long, you've been out, you've got some experience. So what I always bold is the position. You were a clerk or a computer analyst or a designer, and then where, but the where or the company, which city, whatever, that's less important than the position, because you're trying to establish with the people who will help you that you have credibility, you know where you're going, and it makes sense. I've also had what I call the zigzag people. So zigzag people don't know where they're going. They just got $50 more a month to take this other job. You don't want that. Now, there is some young people, it takes a while sometimes to find what is my direction, what is my sudba. So zigzag is a little bit, it's okay. But all along the way, you want to reflect and see, what did I like about that job? What didn't I like about that job? Would I do that job again if I had a better boss or something? And the other thing I want to say, early on, you get jobs and this and that. Don't worry about money. I mean, yes, we got to live on it. It's difficult. But another proverb from Suleiman, he said, see a man who is skilled in his work. It says, he will stand not before mere men, not before commoners. He will stand in front of kings. Why do you think that is? What is it about kings in terms of helping a specialist or hiring a specialist? What do kings have that the commoners don't have?
Money.
Huh?
Richness.
What?
Richness, money.
They have money, but what else do they have?
Quality. Quality.
Did somebody say power?
Power.
Power. They have a staff. They can say to somebody, find me the best plumber, find me the best welder, find me the best lecturers, find me the best music teacher for my children, find me the best artist. And in the Europe in the Renaissance days, the people who were the Beethovens and Bachs, they were invited to kings, I think, who then hired them and gave them food and an apartment and so on to train their children, whatever,
Compose music.
and support them, and they were philanthropy, etc. So kings have a way of being able to predilit quality, that the common who say, well, that we got peer resort, trois resort, tres resort, whatever. Peer resort is the best, but I can only afford tres resort. Kings can afford peer resort. So, if you, as a specialist, grow and develop your skills, money will find you. I learned that here in Uzbekistan. Don't chase after money. Money will find you, but it'll take time, and you have to grow your network, and you always keep track. I see the people on their phones. Farhadaka, Jamila Opa. Well, you don't even remember, you never knew their last name. It's not in a database anywhere. Maybe they changed phone numbers. If you have a database, now you have, oh, that was a really important person. They respected me. I felt affirmed and encouraged working around him. I want to keep in touch with that person. It goes to things like recommendation letters. When you've worked for some place for a year and a half while you're a student and you go to Germany or you go to Kazakhstan or whatever for further, get those recommendation letters now before you leave, before you have to. Just a general recommendation letter. And those recommendation letters should not say, this fellow worked for me during this time, he was a hard worker, and he did this and then he did this and did that. That's a repeat of your CV. The CV has to be honest, but what you want, the recommenders. And so you don't go for the high rector who doesn't know you very well. You go for somebody that's responsible and can talk about your character. This person was always on time. This person was faithful. This person was a hard worker. And your CVs shouldn't have the characteristics. Team player, blah, 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 check on the template. That's too subjective. You can't measure it. CV should be historically what you did, what you performed, etc. And so you use a lot of verbs, which are action things. Initiated this, completed this, responsible for the development or developed this. Any accomplishments will show you're already way ahead of most competitors. Okay? So who will help me? Okay, so anyway, back to this list of all these resumes. You want to get from here into this 5, 3, whatever, so you can get an interview. Now, by the time you get an interview, based on the resume, they have the 3, 4 best people. Any one of those 3 probably would do a good job for them because they've already sort of been screened by some criteria what they're looking for. But now is your chance to win their favor because you have to engage with them. So when you're being interviewed, you don't just sit there, I hope they don't ask me this question, what am I saying about this answer? No, a winsome person with a smile, it's got to be sincere smile, not, as I said, but, that kind of person's going to engage. And so you may be the kind of person that actually has 3 opportunities. And you're trying to figure out which is the best one for you. And it's not just money. It's can you get better experience here? Is it a better quality education? Whatever the criteria that you are thinking. And so in a sense, you are interviewing them. Now there may be 3 people and they're like a businessman, rector of a university or something, and in the company there's HR person and there's the food safety or quality control department. There's the sale, you want to go into marketing, or there's an IT guy, whatever. And they're 10, 15 years older. But when we started our English program at the Irrigation Institute in 1997, and we had a small team, of library people who did the books and took money from students for an English program, whatever. We trained our staff of second year, third year students how to choose the best first year students to work with us as assistants and aides. That it didn't depend on the foreigner. It's like, what do you think? We'd give them criteria and say, okay, you evaluate. And that is so much fun because then we have a team behind us that made the best choices. So the resume will get you to the interview. You got to engage then and be winsome and that kind of thing.
What does winsome mean?
Winsome means that you're just like there's some confidence, there's some dynamo, you're energetic, you somehow get their attention, like they remember you. Because some of these things too, like let's say it's as a third year, the Flex program, okay, and you're competing with several other young people for 1 year or 6 months in America, or even it's a 2-week summer trip through the U.S. Embassy or whatever. Well, you're around a lot of other people, so you have to think, here in my mind, there's somebody out there that's more qualified than you, but you need to win that position because you're engaging, and they will remember you. Because after I've been on these panels, okay, we're sitting around, we got resumes, we're reading essays, and we got 15 people. The three of us went through 15 people, and it was 15 minutes only maybe in a day. At the end of the day, we have to rank those 15 people from 1 to 15, and I score this person 87% or something based on criteria. Somebody else scores 76%, whatever it is, criteria. And then we compare, and then we put them in order, and the top person gets the first opportunity. And if that top person has some other opportunity or doesn't want to do it, then it goes down the list. But they start with the top. And so you have to think there's somebody smarter, there's somebody more gifted, there's somebody who has had better background than me. And this is where I like to tell people, if you came from the village at the end of the road in Kashkadaria, which one of my friends did, and he came to the Agrarian University as a first year to Pastupit, and he had
Malaria.
well, maybe it's malaria. It was what the other one, A, B, and C.
Oh, hepatitis.
Hepatitis. He had hepatitis. It's July, and he's shivering. He's got a big coat on because he's sick. And somehow he went to the exams, and somehow he finished. Another guy who came from Namangan slept in the fields 2 days because he only had how many, 50,000 sum in those days to spend for 2 weeks or whatever it was. So just barely slept in the fields because he really desired. And those guys persevered and they found their way. The guy with the hepatitis went for a PhD in Japan. So the cultural distance that he traveled from the village at the end of the road to a PhD in Japan and then come back and work for international level projects and stuff and teach at the university, that's a very long road culturally, and he showed that he didn't give up. So the person who grew up in Tashkent, who had resources, who had things like this, didn't have to work as hard as the person from the end of the road. At the same time, the person who did come up with resources or family had enough money to give repetitor since 5th grade in English and so on and so on. That person, there's another proverb that says, to whom much is given, much is expected or required. Now that is a moral question that between you and the Creator needs to be answered. Because are you going to be a giver or a taker in life? So if you did have natural talents or advantages because of parents or where you grew up compared to the guy at the end of the road, well then go forward and become the next Nobel Prize winner or whatever it is. So you still should show the same input. But I have seen those people from the end of the road, the village at the end of the road, I've seen them outcompete the Tashkent Leagues that had every advantage because they were able to communicate that they had something of pizzazz. Pizzazz, that's the winsomeness that I'm talking about. Enthusiasm and stuff. So the next question then after who can help me, well, the other thing is, one more thing about the essay. Two guys, let's see, can we, how do we move this to the next one? Do we do this?
No, scroll down.
Scroll?
Down.
And up.
Oh, sorry.
Scroll up.
Okay.
Slightly.
So this fellow here was in California with my support, and so was he. And you know, this is 2006, so he was 24 then. He's 18 plus 24. He's 42 now or something like that. He is now.
You don't need to say.
Huh?
You don't need to say.
No, but he's the expert for horticulture, stone fruit in all of Uzbekistan. Okay, and why am I telling about him? Oh yes, now I remember. So on his initial essay, when he was kind of applying for this or that, he was telling his story, and in the essay, what you need for the essay is you need a good beginning, engaging first couple of sentences. And then anybody who spent some time with composition training knows you have to get the interest by the reader. Just like the person who put the hyperlink at the top of his CV. Okay, you want to get interest initially. So he was telling about when he was 6 years old and his uncle was planting an orchard, and he says, we dug the hole, and then I dug the hole, and my uncle is there, and he says, okay, put the tree in and just pull it up just a little bit and hold it straight because we're going to put soil around it. And he's like, I want to do it perfect because the uncle is talking about if we, don't put the tree in properly, it won't grow. And so he wants to do it right. And at the end, so that was his beginning, kind of picture this thing from the beginning of his. Then he said he went to, agrarian university and learned English and so, and at the end he said he made it tie in his essay from that beginning paragraph and the feeling, because what you're drawing the audience to is the story and the emotions behind that. They're with you in that. Like, what happened to that 6-year-old boy? They're kind of excited. And I was that boy. Same way with another person. Recently, he was deputy minister. So he was at Umidi and so on and so on. But his father, when he was, 10 years old, his father was a construction design engineer for a big project in Circundaria. And the father was responsible for road graders and bulldozers and concrete trucks, cement trucks, and so on for construction of pumps and pipelines for irrigation. And his father, who he really, appreciated, valued, and trusted, took him to this hill and looked at all this activity. He says, son, one of these days you're going to be this kind of person. Well, that motivated him for many years to keep moving forward. And so but in his essay, he told this first part of it when his father took him, or he didn't say that, he wrote it, I helped him with the writing, but something about this scene on that hillside one day, and maybe even how the poppies were out bright. It's a really wonderful feeling. And then he says, gets down to the end, and he says, and I was that boy who grew up, and da-da-da-da. Well, that's so different than everybody. Hi, my name is Sardor, and I, come from Tashkent or whatever. Saying what everybody else says, it's already on your CV. So that's the engaging side. Okay, so finally, back to the questions. Who's be able to help me along the way? Often it's good to get a mentor, somebody who's done this, and get around them and say, take a look at my CV. What do you think? Give me some critique. But I've talked about the moral responsibility of if you've been given much more is on your shoulders of expectation. The same way, if I've been invested in by teachers, by parents, by grandparents, and yes, I did my own hard work. but I got some breaks. I got some help along the way. Then the question is, who am I going to invest in? And I'll tell you a story about another guy. He was in our English program. He was real shy during third year and so on, but we got some Americans, and we went on a field trip to Moinak in Karachi, Pakistan by the Aral Sea, and so I'm watching him and so on. So he was already nominated by our teachers, so that's why I sort of picked him to be in this small team. Then he worked somewhere in the university, adding to his skill set, and then he got a chance. He went to India for a master's, and so I followed. Along the way, I found out that he was teaching English to boys 7 to 10 in his little area of his dormitory for people from the regions that were graduate students and stuff. And yes, he took a little money from the parents, you know, as a repetitor kind of person. But it really impressed me that he had been invested in by our American team and he was giving out. That's the guy that called me this morning and said, "How are you doing? I miss you," and so on, and so on. And with the PhD in America, and his wife is working on her graduate degree. So that's the fourth question that I think we want to ask ourselves: Am I investing in others? And hopefully you will. You'll invest in your children and your family, but maybe there'll be somebody at work that reminds you of what you were like when you were 20, and somebody came alongside and gave you an investment. You say, "Oh, I want to mentor that person." Okay, and there's a benefit too. I mean, if you have the company and you're a manager and you're looking for new future staff to grow your business, it's wise to invest in people. And this is one of the minuses of your country that we observe, at least from the Soviet days. We've heard this so many times. "Oh, just introduce us to the new technology. Give us loans so we can go get credit and buy this new technology from Europe, from Middle East, from Turkey, whatever. We can find the people to manage it." Nabarot. Find the people that are going to help you on your team to adapt to this new technology and learn it and be with you with loyalty. But I think it is a balizin here, and human resources, they're what makes for sustainability. So I don't know much time, but I wanted to just point out a couple more things if we have time. So what time is it?
It's about 4:05.
Okay, I'll be really quick.
Well,
So-
we need to leave room for questions
Okay.
too.
So anyway, these people all went to America and got practical training in agriculture through our connections. And so they were around community. Gene was talking about when you go somewhere, where will you learn about the rules of the game culturally? From friends. It was his birthday when he had dimlama and jiz and so on and cooked it for his American friends. When these guys cooked osh in California for their American friends. They were receiving so much training, zarplata, but they gave back, and they're future leaders. I mean, they're leaders now. So anyway, stories about all these people. And this is what I want to end up with. So right now again, I'm the agricultural guy. But in every sector, whether it's transport, or whether it's tourism, or whether it's industry, or whether it's IT, the latest, your country wants to make IT big, and so on and so on. Right now, people are screaming for talented, hardworking, skilled people. And they're not satisfied the way people are coming out of the university with a bunch of theory, but no practical hands-on or critical thinking abilities, okay? So the industry is screaming, but what I always told people, well, look, think you're a parent and this is your 5 or 6 year old child. What do you notice about that?
They harvested their crop.
Okay, it looks like they worked in the garden and now they harvest. And do you think they are happy and proud that they grew something?
Yeah.
Yes. What else do you notice about like their uniform or something? What? Sorry?
School uniform.
School uniform, okay. Now this, I think, was a club thing, but it could have been a school uniform too. There's something about a certain amount of pride because they're a member of this team. And like I think you're right. Probably is a school uniform. They got the emblem up there, whatever. How proud do you think their parents are?
Really proud.
More than them.
They're very proud, and they're boasting to their friends about my child that grew first place in a prize, Olympiad, whatever. The same way your parents are about you. And when I went to Egypt as a 26-year-old to work on an irrigation project, I came back and I met my father's workmate. And he said, "Oh, your father used to tell me about this and this and this and this adventure." I said, wow, I didn't know my father was so proud of me. We never know sometimes. Yeah, but think about the family. You have memories. This is what we do. You know, every Nowruz we go to Chimgan or whatever it is, like some pamit. Okay. Then in the home we have values. We value and appreciate one another. We listen to one another. We care about one another. The parents are wanting to make this vaspitania. So along the way, we learn skills. Now, this can happen at school. It can happen after school at the computer club. It can happen the robot techie club thing. It can kruzhok, you know, those kind of things. It can happen at the school garden where you're volunteering. It can happen along the way, and you get some stash, you get some experience, and you're volunteering and helping the next gen, you know, people 5 years younger. That's what clubs do. I'm really big on clubs. Also, I just want to say about CVs. Even you've had non-official work, but it's something. You were responsible for this. Put it on the CV. Don't worry. Not local inspector is going to look and see, did you work illegally without a contract or something. The CV is to help you show that you have some experience. And early on in life, you need to show every kind of experience, but be detailed. My complaint with most people is they don't know how to indicate the kinds of details, the kinds of things that they did. Okay, but then you get skills, and then experience, life experience, and then you get vision. You have a vision for your future. You have a vision for your company. You can articulate, speak that to other people. People want to go with you in that direction. And right now, in the agricultural way, people need these managers. But in the club, in the old days, your parents' days, they were in Pionierski and Komsomolski and Oktyabrski. Nowadays, there hasn't been this youth movement. So I'm always talking about clubs and the value of that. And that's all volunteer stuff. But it shows what we call extracurricular activities. So now quit. Ask any questions.